Hi, Nick from Healthy Habits PT. This video we're going to go a little bit in depth into a very popular exercise in the gym called the deadlift. Okay, so the first thing about the deadlift I just want to emphasize is, from my perspective, it's not just lifting the weight up and improving back strength. The main thing that we're looking at is, one, the body's ability to hip hinge or to create space for us to get lower, for those hips to hinge backwards and then come forwards. Now, if we don't have that hip mobility, then that would be the first protocol to improve before we get onto an exercise like the deadlift. Okay, the second thing would be stability. So core control, how well we can stabilize between the rib cage and the hips. Because as you can imagine, if we go into that position there, okay, we need some good stability. We don't want that to break like so. We want to be able to hold it in place. So if we don't have enough stability, then that would be one place I would look at to improve before we get to this. Okay, so two things, mobility and stability, first protocol before attempting something like this. Now, the good thing about that is once you do have those two components, doing a good technique on the deadlift just drives that awesome pattern into the body and creates enough movement and strength through the hips, which is very important. So, when it comes to deadlift, there's lots of different ways that we can do it. Remember, it's the hip hinge. It doesn't matter what the bar looks like. You've got a bar, you've got a trap bar, you've got kettlebells, you can do whatever. It's the same thing all the time. Hinging at the hips, creating space to get low enough to get onto the bar, and then lifting up. So this is what the deadlift looks like. Okay, so a few things to remember when we're doing this lift. One, we want to stand up close to the bar. Okay, this could be quite heavy, so we don't want the bar out in front of us. Besides, if we don't go up close to the bar, it could be that we just don't have enough mobility in those hips. The other thing to remember is when we hold on to this bar, okay, we don't want the shoulders to roll past the bar. We want them to be straight over the top, like so. Once again, if we don't feel comfortable in this position, it could be that we don't have enough mobility in the hips, or we don't have core control, and the body doesn't feel confident being in that position. Okay? So once we've got all those, and we've got onto the ground, the next thing we think about is feet. Now, as you can see, I'm not wearing any shoes. Okay, so nothing wrong with wearing shoes where you do a deadlift, but what I would suggest is that the common runner that you see at the gym has a lot of squish, a lot of cushioning in the heel. And that's not really good because it doesn't create that stability through your ankles to be able to do the lift. Now, if you've got a flat shoe or a lifting shoe, much better. Now, the reason I like no shoes is, one, we've got 3 points that we can use to balance: the ball of the foot, the base of the little toe, and the heel. Now, if we have those 3 points, you can feel them on the ground quite well without shoes. And if we can stay balanced on those 3 points, it's going to create a lot of stability going up the kinetic chain, or just going up the body. Okay, so we get onto there, shins up close to the bar, I've got my hands over like so, and we're ready to lift. Now, there's a few muscle groups that we want to work on. One is glutes, core, and lats. Okay, so those 3 points are really important to create that stability. So the first thing we'd look at is glutes. So with the glutes, basically if I was to turn around and you were watching me from the back, what we've got is the glute muscle and we've got the lat muscle right here. Okay, and what you'll find is that these guys actually have a diagonal pattern. Okay, so the muscle fibers going from the lat go all the way, and some of them cross over into the opposite glute. So when we do that little crossover like so, it actually looks like this. So it creates enough stability. Now, if we're not actually activating through here or here, we're losing the main part of the stability in this lift. Okay, so once we've done that, a few cues you can do: stand up close, hands over the bar, just like squeeze through the glutes, or clench, pull the armpits back, squeeze the bar, just try and create that stability, draw the belly button towards the spine, and lift, and then put it back where you found it. Now when we draw the belly button towards the spine, what we're trying to do is activate through that transverse abdominis, which is the body's natural way to stabilize the pelvis. Now you probably find too that a lot of people wear weight belts when they do their exercises, you know, especially when it comes to the deadlift. Now a weight belt itself isn't a bad thing, but what I would suggest is that the mechanism of a weight belt really helps when you're lifting maximal weight, because what you'll tend to do is you brace against the belt. Now if you go without the belt, what you're relying on is drawing the belly button towards the spine and stabilizing yourself through the lift. So that natural corset of stability comprises transverse abdominis, pelvic floor, diaphragm, and the multifidus along the back of the spine encased in fascia. And that creates your internal weight belt. Now obviously you can't carry your weight belt wherever you go, so by constantly training in that belt, you could be training the core not to look after the stability of the pelvis in an ideal manner when you don't have the belt. Okay, so training without a belt would be a good way to improve your body's ability to look after the stabilization of the pelvis and the back just in everyday life. So another thing too when it comes to the deadlift is the stance that we have. Like I said, you may have the mobility through the hips, you may have the core control as well, but sometimes the length of your limbs just don't move well in this position here. So what we can do is we can actually turn the feet out a little bit, get a bit of a wider stance, and bring the hands to the inside like so. Now we still get that hip hinge, but we've just created a little bit more extra space for us to move into. The other good thing about that is it creates a little bit more stability in the sacroiliac joint, because now what you've got is you've got those femurs pushing right into that joint and creating a bit more stability than if they were just like this. Okay, so it just creates a little bit more stability to have them out like so. And once we've got all those factors incorporated into the deadlift, it really is then practice or time on the bar. Because if we can get those movement patterns working well, like I was saying before, it is just such a great tool to use to create better movement, greater core control and longevity in your training.